First of all, on Capitol Hill yesterday, and there were two, I would say, for most people, unfamiliar but significant faces who are accompanying Pete Hegseth on at least some of his courtesy calls with senators. Let's go to that first photo, please. You can pick which one you do first. Here is in the center there, Mrs. Hegseth. Sean and I and Dan cannot recall a spouse going with a nominee up to Capitol Hill. Interesting choice. Many believe that is not a cowboy hat. I agree with those. It is not a cowboy hat, but it is a hat. And other photos show her wearing jeans. Not sure I've seen too many people go to courtesy calls wearing jeans. Casual style, again, interesting choice. Also accompanying Pete Hegseth is his fellow, what do you call people from Minnesota? A land of 10,000 Laker? What do you call them? Minnesotans. His fellow Minnesotan, you see there in the back behind that big head, that is former Minnesota Senator Norm Coleman, who's a very big player in Republican politics. I have yet to figure out exactly what role he is playing, but senators like to show senatorial courtesy to other senators. If I had a nomination and required Senate confirmation, I would welcome a senator coming with me because, again, senators show deference to senators often, not always. Now, here's my reporting. And again, I always try to balance here. I don't want to be gossipy. I don't want to tell you things that aren't true. I have said from the beginning that there would be more revelations about Pete Hegseth's past that have come out. People are focused on the personal allegations, which are very significant, including use of alleged use of alcohol to excess. The questions raised in the New Yorker piece about his financial mismanagement, alleged, of organizations he ran is catching the eyes of Republican senators. And I will tell you today, if you were going to bet on whether this will come to a vote on the floor of the Senate, I would tell you today, based on what I'm hearing from the Republican Senate side, don't count on it. We may see a rerun of what happened with Matt Gaetz, which is Mar-a-Lago is told you have more than four Republican senators who will not vote for this nomination based on what they know now. They will not be turned. You'd be better off withdrawing it. I believe that that could happen. Sean Spicer, what you know about the Hegseth nomination and his wife's role up on the Hill?
Well, I mean, as far as Jenny's role, I think it's smart, right? You got initial allegations about interactions with women. It's a public show of support, and I think especially helps. So I think from an image standpoint, it was smart to bring her up there. She's obviously clearly in the camera shot for a reason as they go through the hallways. I think it made a lot of sense. And she's also, just to be clear, I mean, Jenny is a very connected person politically through a lot of the shows that she's worked on Fox. So, I mean, she has a lot of personal connections. She probably knows some of these members. It's not a bad reinforcement for Pete to do that. Here's the thing that, to your point, Mark, we've talked a lot about the allegations and the innuendo regarding Pete in the women. The management thing is where I think that they could find a new angle and say, well, it's the Department of Defense, it's this huge apparatus, and you could probably find more people willing to discuss management issues on the record than allegations of sexual harassment, sexual whatever, all of that. It's a lot less sexy, but I think that it could potentially give senators a hook where to say, this is billions of dollars that we're talking about. Therefore, I'm concerned about these allegations, and it doesn't look like a redo of Gaetz. So that's the angle that I would watch right now. Is the management aspect of it would be
Do
new to them.
you know what the political strategist Arthur Fonzarelli would say about what you just said, Sean? Correctamundo.
Hey,
That is what they're seizing on. They're seizing on those allegations from the New Yorker story and the fact that they're backed up by some Republicans, even if they're not necessarily MAGA Republicans, is giving Republican senators the ability to say, we're not just going after people on personal allegations. This stuff and the transition is dealing with two variables related to those allegations. One is, what did they know and when did they know it? In other words, did they know all about this stuff? And then you've already seen some transition spokespeople say Pete's done nothing wrong. They've used that phrase, nothing wrong. And I believe
so
because we are all fallible human beings, that's a very bad standard to set.
So I still think that right now, and I said this, and I want to maintain that the standard here is that until something comes out, I think Pete's a very likable guy. He's had a relationship with a lot of these senators because they've been on his programs. Even before that, with some of the longer standing folks, the work that CVA did politically endeared him to a lot of people and the group. So I think
Yep.
Pete's got some really good relationships that can't be understated. That being said, one point that I think is important, that I think it's, the part of the help, why the show exists is to give people some insight. There was a very interesting tell a couple days on Fox when they referred to Pete Hegseth as our former colleague. And I think it's important to note that in some of these jobs, especially the ones where you're on air or there's a conflict of interest, the employer will tell you to step down or go away or whatever. And I think that the reason I bring that up is that we said this from the get-go on this. If you are getting nominated for something and there's something in your past that you don't want people to know, understand it's going to come out and understand that you're putting everything on the line, your personal life, your professional life. And this is one of these points now where they got to go all in. They've got to, they're recognizing, and that's why I think you saw Jenny Hegseth up there today. Or yesterday, it made smart sense. It reminded them of the relationships that the Hegseth family writ large has with a lot of these folks. But they're also, I think, to me, it also said we're all in on this. We know that
Yep.
there's nothing at this point where we've got everything to lose.
Dan, come on in and provide some of that insight that Sean says we offer here on the program.
Oh, I love listening to Republicans talk about one of their own nominees struggling. First off, I look forward to the criticism of her outfit, almost like somebody wore a tan suit a few years ago, and how demeaning that was to the office. Look, it's hard.
I would wear jeans to the hill. I just don't know people do it regularly.
Yes. It's hard to read the New Yorker story and not cringe. I mean, you can talk about the mismanagement. That's one of them. One of the things I found yesterday really interesting was the way Joni Ernst jumped out in praise of Kash Patel, because I read that a little bit as I'm going to potentially be no on Hegseth. So I'm going to be really for this other one that the base loves right now. And so I think while the management story or the mismanagement story may appeal to some Republican senators as an excuse to be against him, I would not overlook the fact that the sexual harassment allegations are going to also appeal or be of concern to other GOP senators that, may be enough to tank him just right there. So I think he's getting more and more tenuous in his position with every minute.
I think that Dan's point on the Ernst thing was so spot on, because it was like, I want to show you how hardcore I am on some MAGA stuff, because I know that if Hegseth goes down, people are saying I could be the backup, the plan B. Unfortunately, I don't agree with that, but I will tell you that I think Dan's right. But it was so blatant.
Yeah. And it was
it's,
so unlike
it's so
her.
funny. It's
so
so
funny.
funny.
Do that very often.
All three of us reached the exact same independent judgment about that. It's hilarious. Doesn't mean we're right, but it probably does.